People often attribute Jewish overachievement to their high intelligence, which leads to a disproportionate number of them at the far right of the bell curve, so 2 standard deviations plus in IQ. Not all of Jewish overachievement can be explained by this. For instance, I read something that there are 7 times as many non-Jewish whites with IQ of 130 or 140 plus in the US must be higher in European countries, and not much is said of other psychological traits that lead to achievement. Well, that's a very, very good question. There was a paper published by Curtis Dunkel and Dimitri van der Linden in which they looked at the GFP, the general factor of personality, which is a measure of social effectiveness. And they looked at it for different religious groups, including Jews and also atheists, and for various Christian denominations. So they had multiple groups. And what they found consistently was that not only did Ashkenazic Jews have a much higher level of this social effectiveness trait, this GFP general factor of personality, than the other groups were talking about a much higher level, they also had a sort of Jensen effect, by which I mean the more GFP-loaded personality dimensions showed the biggest differences between the Jews and the other groups. So it seems that there are very substantive differences in personality, and this might be consistent with some of Kevin MacDonald's theories about Jews having very slow life histories, because GFP is genetically correlated with other life history measures, so this might be part of a life history matrix. A quick question: did that GFP finding control for sex? I believe so, and was more replicated. Curtis actually replicated it in another paper. The first paper replicated it in 2 samples, then he replicated it in a 3rd sample and published it in another journal. But there are 2 papers out there on this. Well, I read that Jewish men, not women, were higher in neuroticism. This is interesting because of the Jewish massive over-contribution to the arts particularly. And on the one hand you could say they have high linguistic intelligence relative to their other spatial intelligence. The Jews are overrepresented among architects, but not nowhere near as much as they are among lawyers, according to Linden's book. Yes, they are verbally tilted in addition to very high G and very high GFP, which must account for something. In terms of doing well in the arts, the optimum neuroticism tends to also to be associated with doing well academically and also with doing well in arty things. So that also might help to explain very high representation among Ashkenazi Jews in the arts. This question is a good question because it's very easy for people to get focused on IQ and IQ differences, and the idea that IQ is all that matters, and it's the only sort of meaningful yardstick by which we can measure success or potential, and the reality is that no, actually you have these other factors like the general factor of personality, which is completely uncorrelated genetically with IQ. It's a totally separate thing, and it has a very, very pronounced and independent effect on success in life. There are some meta-analyses conducted by the van der Linden group who have shown that this GFP is as good at predicting, if not better at predicting, real-life outcomes than the individual Big Five or the individual personality dimensions that make it up. So it's an interesting measure, and it is something that shows a very pronounced group difference, and it is probably something that contributes above and beyond IQ to the very high levels of success of this particular group.